Mentioned Paula Kearney and Antony Lee now are going to give a lived experience in terms of the drugs treatment court, and they can come to the podium together or separate, wherever everybody's comfortable with. So firstly we have Paula. And congratulations again. Well done.
Thank you.
Masters.
My name is Paula Kearney. I would have been a participant on the drug court, 3 times. So, like the judge was talking about people who it doesn't always work for, and it may not be the right time for them. And for me, the first 2 times wasn't. The first time, I actually did graduate, the first time, but with the nature of addiction, I slipped back into it because I wasn't ready at the time. Do I personally believe, I don't think addiction belongs in the criminal justice system at all, but in the absence of decriminalisation, legalisation, the drug court is that sort of alternative, where it stops people from going into prison. I've been there many times, and I can tell you prison does not help with addiction. It doesn't support people to come out of addiction. If anything, you can get drugs in prison, just saying, for anyone, there's plenty of them there. And prison just helps push you further and further into that, because you're dealing with your trauma in there. You're dealing with everything that had already led you to that place. So without them support of services like the drug courts, now for me I did go to the drug courts, but as Fiona said, they also work with different services and all, and I didn't attend the education piece. I attended a service called the SAIL Project, but that was a service, for me, I wanted a service that worked with women directly, because I'd been through a lot of trauma in my life, and I felt it was, if I was in a space with women, that I'd feel safe. But if I hadn't got the drug courts at that time, I wouldn't have been able to progress on my own life. And as I said, I'm actually proud to say I'm a master's graduate now, but I would have never, ever even had that opportunity, because at that time when I finally did go into the drug courts for the 3rd time, I was at a time in my life that I wanted to change in my life. I was after opening up about what traumas I'd been through. And that's the part I think a lot of the times that's missing, is people don't realise that you can't police addiction out of people. You can't have authority over people and expect them to achieve. If you work with people from a compassionate lens, it's a different outreach approach, and it's a different impact you're going to have. And for the drug courts, I'll have to say, I always remember going to it, and excuse me, as someone who'd been in front of the courts, all different types of courts on many occasions, and someone who'd never enjoyed school, never enjoyed any of that, because it was always authority-led, to actually go into the drug courts and have a judge ask, "Hey, how are you?" I was like, I was going to use a different word, but I was like, what's going on here? You're not used to that approach. You're used to, as a person who uses drugs, being stigmatised, being shamed, being put down. So you're not used to someone meeting you with compassion. And that's where I will say the drug courts is great at, having that piece that you go in. Usually in the court system, your solicitor's talking for you, and you can never have your voice within that. Whereas with the drug courts, you have your voice in it, you can actually stand there and talk, say what's going on for you. If you're having a bad week, they will work with you with that. Whereas other times you're just locked up, and the judge doesn't actually even try to get to know you. They don't really want to get to know you. So to have that compassionate approach is strange for people who use drugs, because we're not used to it. So it does work. So, and I think there has to be a whole sort of look, a societal change on the views of people who use drugs. Because the media, the way the media is highlighting drug use and the issues that come along with drugs, is not, listen to the people who have actually experienced it, listen to the people who live in the communities that are destroyed by it. And I will say, yes, drugs do destroy communities, but I think drug policy destroys communities even more. And if you look across now, like if you look at cocaine use, all that has now crossed all walks of life. And drug use is more than it's ever been in the past. But the drug policies itself only affect certain communities negatively. And I think there has to be a whole new approach. And if you think of anything when you're doing, keep an open mind in that. And look at the communities where stop and searches happen. Look at the communities that are heavily policed, and wonder why they're heavily policed. I wonder why the young people in them communities get into the situations they do. But I do believe that there has to be more alternatives to prison, because prison doesn't work for people, and it doesn't help in any way. It destroys families. And I had a conversation outside earlier, like particularly for women. When women go into prison, there's that whole thing of like their children can be taken off them, and then you still expect them to come out and jump through hoops and get drug-free and be that good little woman that you should be, because people who use drugs are heavily stigmatised, but when it's women, we're stigmatised worse. When our mothers were stigmatised worse, but our mother with a conviction, that just rolls on and on and on, and it does nothing to help society, it does nothing to help the people who use drugs, and it does nothing to help the children of them people. Sorry, I had to
Thank
get
you,
a little...
Paula. No, thank you very much. Yeah.
Done?
If you have a closing message, please.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Closing message to actually keep an open mind, you know, and like really, as the judge was saying, like the drug courts aren't resourced, they're not fully resourced. Think about the alternatives that could be there for people. Think about like having, you know, holistic approaches, but fund and resources the services that are already there, you know, properly, not just, and allow actually for people with lived and living experience to be part of that whole process, because it's great having people with lived experience. I can stand here and say that, but we should have more people who are actually going through it right now, standing here and telling their stories.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we should always remind ourselves it's very difficult for people to come from a professional perspective and speak to 100 or 150 people in a room. It's really impressive how people come from a personal perspective and share their lived experience. So thanks, Paula. Now, and we'll come back there. Antony, can I ask you to join us, please, in similar context? And just while Antony's joining us, I mean, I was struck by one very strong comment, many comments, but particularly, it's not just drugs that hurt communities, it's drug policy hurts communities. Very strong point. Antony.
Thanks, and good morning. I don't know how I'm going to follow that, Paula. I better turn my phone on silent, so I don't want my wife ringing me in the middle of a speech. That won't go down well. Yeah, I was one of the first graduates of the drug court. And I was just thinking when Judge Ryan was saying it's 20 years ago. And I'm working there 20 years this year. You know, I completed it in 8 months. Thanks. I completed in 8 or 9 months. I didn't go through the drug courts, the school system. I was in a program called Soldier. But for what the drug court's done for me is what Paula says. I'm going to just share a little bit about my experience. I've been in the system since I'm 14. I went to a home in St. Michael's for not going to school for 3 weeks. I got 3 weeks over in the castle over there. That's where the judge sat at that time, you know, for not going to school. And that's where my trauma started off in the system. And then I went from there to St. Patrick's, to Mountjoy. And that's the way my life went from an early young age, you know. And my father used to say, change careers, your son. He says, you're a bad thief. You're always getting caught. So, but that's the way my life went, you know. And I've witnessed a lot of things up there in prison. And we all know prison guards are stretched and stuff like that, you know. There was no intervention when I was up there 20 odd years ago, you know. It's getting a lot better now up there. And we were just talking to a group outside, and they're trying to teach prisoners, because there's a lot of mental health up there and all, you know. We all know there's a lot of drugs up there, you know. I mean, even when I was there was a lot of drugs up there, you know. And it's getting a lot better. There's a lot more supports there. And I wasn't really there when I was there, because with mental health, what I seen firsthand was prison guards didn't know how to take care of them. They kept giving them wrong medication and stuff. They weren't trained for that sort of stuff, you know. So as I said, it's getting a lot better, you know what I mean. And then when I got a chance to go to the drug courts, as my life went on, I used to go down to the Bridewell courts, and when I went down at 2 o'clock, I knew what it meant for me. I knew it meant I was going back up to jail. And this particular time I went down this day, and it was at 2 o'clock. So I says, I'm going back up to get a sentence. And I can't think of the judge's name. The judge says to me, there's a new system, he says, set up. He said, it's called the drug courts. He says, would you be interested? So he said, if you're not interested, he said, I'm having a look at your rap sheet now. He says, I know where you're going. And at the particular time, I didn't want to go back to jail. And I was at the end of my drug using and stuff like that. So I said, I'll have a go. And I went to the drug courts. And there was Judge Horton there. Terrible nice man. Now, as Paula says earlier on, when I went, he used to come down and get from his chair, like, and come down to where I was. Now, believe me, that never happened in my lifetime. A judge coming down to me and asking me how I am. Never happened. So I was a little bit suspicious when he came down and he was asking me. I was thinking, what does he want? So he showed compassion. He showed empathy. I never had that off people like that, you know. It was like what Paula said, it was all authority in my life. Through my life as a young age, authority. And I seen him as authority. But I seen this man meant when he was asking me how I was, you know. So I am very, very grateful. And I can actually say he's a friend of mine, you know. I gave him a watch as a present. And he always says, I have your watch on my hand, you know. No joke. What time is it today, Jared? But, you know, I never had it. And I'm very, very grateful at the chance that I have, you know. And just get up and tell my bit of experience from where I came from. You know, there's a little part I want to read out. And this is a guy that's with us, that's ravished by addiction. And his family's ravished by addiction. Now, he didn't know I was coming here. And he just seen, and he asked me to read, and I'm not going to read his story. I'm just going to read one or two couple of lines that captured me. And it says, the education class I attend through the drug courts is something that is helping me a lot. Gives me structure in my day. And I learn a lot of interesting things, like the way to live, how to take yourself out of certain situations. In the education class I attend, there is a wide range to pick which suits you at the time in my life. For instance, if I see my counsellor on a certain day, we talk about something that opens up certain emotions in me. Now here's a guy that came into us 8 months ago with his head down like this. And this is what he's getting out of the programme, the drug treatment courts. Now for me reading that and people saying, well, look, if that's not helping somebody, look, we all know, look, it's not the perfect programme. There's no such thing as a perfect programme. We just try our best. We're a small programme that try our best. And there's a lot of people that came through our programme that is working in addiction services. And it's just great to see, you know, myself and Paula. And there's many more of them, you know. So that's all. We're dealing with a lot of people that's in homelessness, and some of the stories are horrific.
I just asked you to finish up, Antony. You know.
I thought you were going to give me an extra 2 minutes, Paul.
Yeah.
So some of the stories are horrific, you know. They really are, especially with the women and stuff, you know. So we just try our best. That's all we do. But we'll have our critics, but we just keep on trying, and we do meet them where they're at, you know. So thanks for listening to me.
Thank you, Antony.